Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to Life on the Wrist. I hope you guys are doing well today. Swiss watch exports numbers are in for the month of December. We ended the year off kind of similar to the way that November kind of went. If you are new to this series that we do on this channel, basically we're going to go over the Swiss watch export results that are published every single month by the Swiss Federation of Watchmaking, and kind of discuss what we think the outlook looks like for the next month. I'm going to recap the November results and then go into the December results. So if you haven't seen our November video, we did post one, but you can also check it out on our website. We have a blog post where we kind of summarize the export results for the previous month. So the November results were fairly optimistic in a way. We kind of found kind of like a plateau and almost like an equilibrium when it comes to our declines that were caused by the global pandemic that is going on. Swiss watch exports fell around 3% year over year. So 2019 to 2020, the month of November, you saw a decline about 3%, which is a fairly optimistic number. And I think that was mostly driven by holiday shoppers and the like. And so the 12-month moving average was around negative 20%. We also we do predictions of the following month, and my prediction was basically that the holiday season would have a positive influence on the amount of watches that were being purchased by people. And there was vaccine optimism as well. And so we predicted a decline of about negative 2% for the month of December. And looking at the month of December, we were very, very close. Swiss watch exports fell by negative 2.5%. The total Swiss watch exports were 1.7 billion Swiss francs. This was obviously compared to 2019 of the 2019 December results. And so, when you really think about it, that was pre-pandemic. People were still buying goods, but a negative 2.5% decline is actually, it's lower than what it was. But with everything going on, the economic impact that this pandemic has had, those are fairly good numbers coming out of Switzerland, and it was quite in line with our predictions. If we look at the 12-month moving average, we're still around that negative 20% mark, which is, it's a big decrease. But hopefully going into this next year, this will increase, and obviously it will when you're comparing, March, April, May, when the pandemic started, to this year. Hopefully that is going to be higher than what it was. If you look at 2020 as a whole, the sector actually saw the value of its shipments abroad fall by about 22%, so just under 17 billion Swiss francs. If we move on to the wristwatches by material, this is where they kind of break out the different materials that the watches are made of and what type of export numbers those had. You'll see steel watches grew significantly when it comes to the Swiss francs exported. You can see a positive 6.3% growth, but the change in percentage when it comes to units was a little bit down. So that was the first time since January that actually happened. Overall, you're still looking at huge, very, very sharp declines in each of these categories, both in units and in Swiss francs exported. Other metals did see an increase by about 10.4%, but you can still see, precious metals, steel, gold and steel, and other materials all were down in units, as high as 26% and as low as 6.2%, as well as in Swiss francs exported. So it's still a sharp decline compared to December 2019, but kind of expected. Looking at the watches by price category, this I found very, very interesting. So you can see from 200 Swiss francs to about 500 Swiss francs. The declines continued. You're looking at, let's say an average of about 20% down when it comes to units between these two. And also value was on the downward slope. But then you have this really interesting niche between 500 and 3,000 Swiss francs that actually saw a really great growth rates. You can see units increased by about 18% in value, by 19.5%. I think this is probably where the holiday shopping kind of comes in. This is probably a sweet spot for the broader market to buy watches that they want to gift to people during this holiday season. It's a lot of money, I understand that, but I think that's probably what made this category. It's what I hypothesized made this category be a little bit higher. Watches over about 3,000 Swiss francs obviously declined in units and in value, but it was a little bit. It wasn't as huge as that 200 to 500, or I guess 0 to 500 Swiss franc price categories. Overall, you're looking at units declining about 13% and value declining about 2.2%. And moving on to the main markets. With this section, I'm actually going to give you an overview of December, but then actually look at the year as a whole, so we can look at the markets, the top 30 markets for the entire year. But for the month of December, the top 6 markets were again dominated by Eastern countries. So you have China coming in at number 1, US 2, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, and the UAE. China coming in with very, very strong results for the month of December, which is fairly phenomenal that they have such incredible growth rates compared to 2019, December 2019. They made up about 18% of the top of all markets for the month of December, followed by the US, which saw only that 2.4% decline, which is fairly in line with kind of the export results, the overall export results. And then from there, you're looking at declined, but almost even for some of them, like Japan. If you look at kind of like the top 30 lists, you can see that there were some more countries that saw positive growth rates for the month of December, namely number 12, which is Russia, which saw 138% increase between 2019 and 2020 December. Taiwan also came in number 13 with positive results, as well as the Netherlands. But there are many more that saw fairly good growth rates, like Qatar, Ireland, Austria, India, Portugal, Kuwait, and Oman in the top 30. For the most part, commerce is going to continue, and there are places that are going to have negative growth rates, like the US, Germany, etc., etc. But there are some countries that are slowly recovering. And so, looking at the January to December markets, kind of overall markets, the top 30 list that they've compiled here, this really does show you the impact of the pandemic on the global economy. The top 30 markets, you can see only 3 of them show positive growth rates between 2019 and 2020, and these are, in my opinion, these are either China number 1 at plus 20% growth rate year over year. Which to me is just because the way that they handled the pandemic was very different than a lot of other countries, and so they were able to open up very, very quickly. So that's one of them. And then it's basically just a wall of negative results from 2 to 22. And then at 23 and 24, we have Oman and Ireland, which saw increases of 73% for Oman and 611%. I think 611% increase is incredibly large. I think that's just because of I think this is a market that's slowly making itself. So these are kind of, I don't want to say outliers, but they're, the market is, it's not as saturated. And so I think it's slowly kind of picking up and growing. And it's crazy to look at the variance between 2019 and 2020 coming in at 22%. You look at the millions of Swiss francs, you're looking at almost 22 billion in 2019, and then about 17 billion. This is a big difference comparatively. And then the last thing that I look at is this variation by region. It's a similar story that it's been for the most part this year. Asia growing by 2.5%, and then everything else, the variation is negative. I think this is, it is what this year is probably going to be look like, and it is very interesting to look at the total share when it comes to the different regions. Asia making up 57% of the total value of the Swiss watch exports. So positive growth rate for the Swiss watch industry is a good thing. Fairly good results there. And then the last thing is just to talk about the predictions that I have for January. Actually, before we do that, let me just kind of like talk about the year. I think, you know, this was a tough year for the Swiss watch industry. You obviously saw a major decline in Swiss watch exports due to the lockdowns and the, you know, global impact that this pandemic has really had on the economies, on people's buying habits, etc. And so it's been a tough year, but I think slowly things are coming back, getting back on track, and hopefully things for 2021 will have a better outlook. Looking at January of 2021, we can talk about my predictions. You know, this was January, there wasn't really anything too heavy when it comes to the pandemic, and so I think you're probably going to see similar results that you saw for the month of December of 2020, like around a negative 2.5% decrease. I think the economy has obviously not recovered fully. People are still, there are people without jobs. It's definitely a difficult place to be right now, and so I think there's going to be a decline compared to 2019. I'm predicting probably around a negative 3% drop, just based off of pandemic. Just based off of the pandemic kind of recovery that we're kind of in, and then really I think, you know, from March onwards you're going to see probably positive variations. Just because of how much the Swiss watch exports declined early last year. So negative 3% is my prediction for next month. I hope you guys enjoyed these videos where we talk about Swiss watch exports. They're really fun for us to make. If you haven't seen some of our other videos where we go through the export results, be sure to check out our playlist where we go through all these. There probably are some in the side panel for you to check out. Also, don't forget to check out our blog posts on our website and follow us on all our social medias. And with that said, guys, be sure to smash that like button for us for the end of 2020. These are the last results that we're going to be discussing, and onwards to a new year. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you like these types of videos. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.